We all know who won the most famous duel between Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr. But what if I told you there's still one Hamilton-Burr duel that hasn't ended, and that you may be unwittingly playing a role? Welcome to American Esoterica. If history class gives you the fast Italian, this is the free breadsticks, the essential stuff in between, the personalities, events, and other ephemera that shape our history and culture. I'm Brian Powers. It's the most famous duel in American history. Hamilton and Burr above the cliffs of Weehawken, pistols drawn. In this version, however, both live on, firing shot after shot, and neither notching a decisive win. But let's go back to the origins of the latter duel to unravel how it all began. In 1783, the Treaty of Paris ended the Revolutionary War for good. Even though it had been effectively over for 2 years, there was kind of a holding pattern in the artists formerly known as the 13 British colonies. With the treaty signed, Evacuation Day, the process of Britain and Britain-adjacent folks packing up and heading out, left New York City a hollowed-out husk. One British soldier fired a lone and very literal parting shot, but there was really nothing left to hit. The port was ruined, the population was cut in half, and much of the city had been ravaged during the war. What the city needed, according to Alexander Hamilton, was a bank. There wasn't a single problem that guy saw that couldn't be solved by a bank. In 1784, he and a few other like-minded individuals put an ad in the paper seeking investors, and once they had a proper group assembled in a small cafe on Wall Street, fittingly enough, Hamilton himself wrote the Constitution for the Bank of New York. He based it on the Bank of North America in Philadelphia, founded with his encouragement by fellow founder Robert Morris in 1781, and the only bank in the colonies at the time. The new bank would serve several purposes. It would ensure the city's merchants had access to financing, it would safely hold the deposits of city leaders and investors, and it would attract credit from others around the world that would help rebuild New York. As New York became a financial center, the Bank of New York remained its central core. And when the earliest version of the New York Stock Exchange opened in 1792, the very first stock traded was of the bank. The bank was a rousing success and served many in the city, except non-Federalists. Hamilton's bank was founded as a partisan gesture, designed to fund Hamilton's friends and those loyal to the Federalist ideals. Know who couldn't get a deposit into the Bank of New York? Thomas Jefferson. See also Aaron Burr. No Democratic Republicans allowed. You want a bank in New York? You have to be a Federalist. It was literally the only option, and it secured Federalist control of New York politics for over a decade, including winning the bitter fight to ratify the United States Constitution in the state. With no access to financial capital in the city, the Jeffersonians were defeated and shut out. Then, Aaron Burr decided to give it a shot, as he does. Being Aaron Burr, he did it in one of the most sly ways possible. By the last few years of the 18th century, New York had been battling increased epidemics of diseases such as yellow fever, brought on by poor sanitation. Looking to Philadelphia with its success in creating a public water system to battle the scourge, many in New York believed just such a thing was necessary and worthwhile. Aaron Burr saw it as an opportunity. The Democratic Republicans had been coalescing around him as a leader, and this was his opportunity to prove himself adept at challenging the Federalist stranglehold. Burr moved to form a company to provide clean water, arguing that public funds alone would be insufficient. The only way forward was privatization of the water system, an argument that he knew would land with his old frenemy, Alexander Hamilton, who joined him in the venture. Burr made Hamilton the public face of the company, and he played the role to a T, arguing to the public about the need for the legislature to charter a private company to create a water system for the city. When it came to get the bill passed after it garnered enough support, Burr made some changes to the final bill that created a charter for the water company. Just some small items here and there. Nothing too big, don't worry about it. In 1799, the Manhattan Company was thus born, ready to provide good, clean water to the city as a private water company chartered by the New York legislature. And it did this job poorly. Instead of tapping into a clean water supply, it drew water from a polluted pond. Instead of using quality metal pipe materials, it just used hollowed-out logs. It did, however, charge exceedingly high rates, which most were unable to afford. In the end, it only ever laid 23 miles of pipes. No, the Manhattan Company wasn't ever really good at providing a clean water supply. That's because that was never really its intended purpose. Aaron Burr didn't write a charter for a water company into the bill granting it authority. He buried a small clause deep within the bill that created, instead, a bank pretending to be a water company. It could make loans and collect deposits, and it came with such low share prices that everyday folks could buy a stake. The Bank of the Manhattan Company opened officially 5 months after the Manhattan Company was founded. The very second commercial bank to operate in New York City, just a few feet from the Bank of New York on Wall Street. Hamilton was furious when he realized that he had been duped. He cut all ties to the company, which listed him as a founder. Burr had broken the Federalist monopoly on banking with Hamilton's unwitting help. And with access to financial capital, the Democratic Republicans began to gain ground. Burr joined Jefferson's presidential ticket in 1800, and the looming Cold War that had been brewing between him and Hamilton turned hot one cold morning in 1804 in Weehawken. So that's the story of the dueling banks of Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr. But it doesn't end there, because both banks stuck around for a while. The Bank of New York made its home at 48 Wall Street in 1797, creating a precedent for Wall Street as a financial hub. It stayed in that spot for 201 years through 3 different buildings before moving officially to One Wall Street. The Bank of New York made a lasting impact on the country. In 1789, it made a loan to the United States government to cover the salaries of Congress and the President, orchestrated by Hamilton. It lives on today after several mergers and acquisitions as BNY. Burr's Bank of the Manhattan Company made its home in a row house at 40 Wall Street, and it stayed in those comfy confines until 1929, when a developer working with the Manhattan Company revealed plans to build a neo-Gothic skyscraper, then what would be the tallest building in the world. It had stiff competition. The Chrysler Building was going up across town, and both sets of builders competed for the title of world's tallest building through ever-changing plans and what became known as the race into the sky. The Chrysler Building had a secret weapon, though. A secret 125-foot-long spire atop the building that made it taller by more than 100 feet. 40 Wall Street did win the construction race, standing as the world's tallest building for 1 month. Years passed, and after several acquisitions, consolidations, and a Nazi collaboration or two, the most substantial merger since 1799 took place in 1955. Bank mergers were banned at the time, but a good lawyer for the bank mustered his finest Aaron Burr impersonation and argued that the Manhattan Company was not a chartered bank. It was, technically, a water company. That argument won, and the Bank of the Manhattan Company officially merged with Chase National Bank to become Chase Manhattan. Years down the road, and the company is still going strong as J.P. Morgan Chase. You might even have a Chase credit card, or, like me, work in a building named for the bank. 40 Wall Street, the original home of the Manhattan Company, still stands today, 2 doors down from Federal Hall, the place where George Washington took his first oath of office that served as our nation's first capital. It's only fitting, then, that 40 Wall Street has its own presidential ties. Today, 40 Wall Street is known by the name of its owner, President Donald J. Trump. From our first president on through to our 47th, our nation has progressed maybe 50 feet. As for the Hamilton-Burr duel, it continues today through the banks started by each that lived as neighbors on Wall Street for almost 2 centuries. Remember that the next time you use your Chase card to buy a cheap candy bar. You're scoring a point for Team Aaron Burr. This has been American Esoterica. All sounds were made by me, Brian Powers. Did I get it wrong? Did I get it right? Just want to let me know that I can get up to 2% cash back in a preferred card from Chase? Drop me a note. The address is yale@americanesoterica.com. More information on this show and its episodes can be found at americanesoterica.com. Thank you for listening, and God bless America.